Hello, good morning. Welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we react to the Sunday morning news shows we watch so that you don't have to. I'm Katie Halper.
And I'm Aaron Maté. Good Monday morning to everybody.
Good Monday morning. And there's a chubby little cat behind me, so no body shaming of her. She's out of the frame because she already feels self-conscious because I mentioned her. She's very cute and chubby. Her name is Cookie.
Don't forget
near her
to like the stream for Cookie and for all your fellow Useful Idiots. And also usefulidiots.substack.com where you get extended episodes and bonus content. Don't forget to go there, or usefulidiots.locals.com.
Yeah, we have great stuff for you. We do, not only do you get the extended interviews, but you also get Thursday Throwdown, your midweek dose of media madness, where you get this kind of stuff, but it's about midweek clips.
It's on Thursday instead of Monday.
And it's released on Thursdays, right? And it's not live. So you get the live with us here where we get to interact with you. And then if you want a more private behind the scenes one, that's a Thursday Throwdown. So we got you covered.
We sure do. And we've also got you covered if you want to hear some from Chuck Todd, because he's in the house today. So let's go to the Chuckster for our weekly recap.
And remember, guys, we just want to warn you, he's on his way out, so we really have to savor these Chuck moments.
A good Sunday morning this week marks the unofficial kickoff of the next phase of the 2024 campaign, as at least 8 Republicans competing to take on Donald Trump will meet in Milwaukee for the first Republican debate. Trump plans to skip the debate and instead is...
The unofficial kickoff for the next phase.
Yeah. I wonder who declared that.
Yeah. The unofficial kickoff for the next phase. I don't know. That's pretty ambiguous. It's unofficial and it's just a next phase.
Right. It sounds like they're kind of grasping for straws to justify this segment.
I think what he's saying is we're holding the first debate of the primary season.
That's another way of saying it. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know for certain. It's up in the air, but there's a chance. So check my Twitter, KT Halps, letter K, letter T, HALPS. There's a chance I'll be doing a live stream of said Republican debates with a very special guest. I don't know yet, but we'll release a Substack announcement if we do that. Okay. Back
reportedly
to the
counter-programming in an interview already taped with former Fox host Tucker Carlson. Of course, it used to be that extramarital affairs, campaign trail tears, forgetting a cabinet agency, even a weird scream could end a presidential campaign. Now Donald Trump has been criminal.
By the way, it's worth pointing out that scream that he's referring to is the scream of Howard Dean. And that scream ending a campaign was a media decision. They decided to release that audio without the audio of the people in the room. So it sounded more unhinged and disconnected. So just a reminder of a fine moment in media.
That.
Yeah.
So there was a conspiracy against Howard Dean. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
I mean, definitely they hyped up the scream because at the time he was considered to be like somewhat progressive.
Yeah, somewhat insurgent. Yeah.
He's since totally destroyed that reputation. He's a lobbyist.
Big pharma guy,
He's a lobbyist for the MEK, complete cheerleader for the Ukraine proxy war. He can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
At the time, he was considered like maybe kind of progressive, and he kind of had the ear of the youth. The youth,
yes.
And you can't have that.
And small donations, yeah,
you can't have that. So that was like an early preview of the sabotage of Bernie Sanders. So Howard Dean fell in line.
Yeah,
and thankfully, Democrats elected a charismatic politician named John Kerry,
right,
whose main criticism of George W. Bush launching the Iraq War was that Bush went in with the wrong equipment for the troops. That was his like searing critique of George W. Bush. It was the wrong equipment. And Kerry was going to get a better coalition to go into Iraq. That was like the choice we faced in 2004. Great memories.
Great memories, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hear about what's happening in the Republican primary where, this guy's, as Chuck is saying, has 4 indictments. That's a funny choice.
Criminally indicted 4 times in as many months, faces 91 felony counts, and he still leads the Republican field nationally by nearly 40 points. And outside of New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who's polling at 3% in a new Quinnipiac poll, and to a degree is former Vice President Mike Pence, Trump's Republican opponents, for the most part, are declining to take him on directly.
We've done over 80 town halls in New Hampshire and Iowa. And Eric, not one of them are asking me about Trump. Not one of them are asking me why I'm running against him or anything else.
I think that these indictments are a disaster for the country. And I say this as somebody who just look at the polls that have come out in the last 24 hours. I'm polling second in many of these national polls. It would be easier for me if Trump were eliminated from competition.
Instead, in a pre-debate memo from Ron DeSantis' super PAC, advises him to take a sledgehammer to Vivek Ramaswamy and to defend Trump when Christie inevitably attacks him. Of course, the Republican candidates are terrified of alienating the Trump-supporting voters that they'll need to win by criticizing Trump. But show us the campaign where an underdog beat a dominant frontrunner by not taking on said frontrunner directly. In an interview with the Florida Standard, DeSantis took a swipe at Trump's cult of personality inside the Republican Party. And the swipe immediately got Trump and his allies to lash out.
You could be the most conservative person since sliced bread. Unless you're kissing his rear end, they will somehow call you a rhino. If all we are is listless vessels that's just supposed to follow, whatever happens to come down the pike on Truth Social every morning, that's not going to be a durable movement.
Already this morning, the Trump campaign is trying to weaponize that phrase, listless vessels, trying to compare it to the famous basket of deplorables comment from Hillary Clinton in 2016. Trump is systematically right now attacking the prosecutors and judges in his cases, and there are new threats of violence. A Texas woman was charged with threatening to kill the federal judge overseeing the 2020 election case here in Washington, D.C. And Trump supporters posted the names and addresses of the members of the Georgia grand jury who brought back that indictment against Trump. And after promising a major news conference on Monday to release what he called would be an irrefutable report proving the 2020 election fraud, which of course has been debunked in dozens of court cases, on Thursday, Trump canceled the event. He cited the advice of lawyers. This is a reminder that anything he says in public could be used against him in a court of law. In a Quinnipiac poll this week, an overwhelming majority of Americans, 83%, said they are worried about the system of democracy being able to function here in the United States. President Biden was elected to restore the soul of the nation, in his words. A vote for Biden was said to be a vote to get rid of Trump. But Trump has made it clear he's not going anywhere, and he's still here. Now, just 24% of Americans say they want Biden to run again, and just 30% want Trump to run again.
This is our democracy, people.
Look at those inspiring figures.
Wow.
Wow. 24% for Biden, 30% for Trump. And yeah,
running.
Trump hasn't gone away. Trump hasn't gone away because the media refused to stop talking about him because he saves their ratings. And Democrats are obsessed with making him the new incarnation of Hitler because they have nothing else to run on. And of course, Trump wants to talk about Trump, so it really is the worst of all worlds. The one thing I'm unclear on is Ron DeSantis saying the line about the most conservative thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
I didn't realize sliced bread is conservative.
I mean, he just really threw his movement under the bus. It's boring. Very, very white. What else is it? Old school, can get stale often.
Okay, well, so then I think the analogy makes sense.
Right, unintentionally, yeah, old and white,
okay.
yeah.
All right, Ron DeSantis, you're onto something.
Yeah, you're on something.
Sliced bread is conservative.
And as Trump has been indicted again and again and again and again, Biden has chosen against taking him on in any meaningful way right now. That choice, and the choice of top Republicans to stay silent, has left a massive moral vacuum in our fraying democracy. Who is defending the guardrails? This morning, the Biden campaign is defending the president's record in a new $25 million ad campaign, which will run across battleground states.
There are some who say
a new $25 million ad campaign paid for by Biden's Wall Street donors to tell everyone how great the economy is for everybody, even if they don't realize it.
Right.
It sounds like a hit.
Yep.
America is failing, not Joe Biden. He believes our best days are ahead because he believes in the American people.
Those who bet against America are learning how wrong they are.
All right. I don't know who that is, but sure. By the way, Aaron, one thing I want to push back on is you said that they're calling Trump the new Hitler. Trump is actually Cheeto Mussolini, And the new Hitler is, of course,
Vladimir Putin. Fair enough. Yeah,
yes,
my bad.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
bad.
That's the
Sorry.
right cast of
I
characters.
got my historical figures of villains mixed up.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was an exciting roundup of U.S. democracy.
Yeah. And here we got some more Chuckster for you. And you may detect a theme on the shows, which is that Chuck really wants Republicans to bash Trump. He really wants some hot Republican on Republican hate action. And he's going to get blue balls. Spoiler alert. So let's go to the next clip of the Chuckster and see if he gets what he wants.
In a couple of interviews, plus in the one we've just had now, you've been quite comfortable bringing up Hunter Biden on Joe Biden. But it's remarkable to me how uncomfortable you, and you're not alone here, you are bringing up the legal problems and the charges against Donald Trump.
Now I should explain that this is Governor Doug Burgum, who's almost as well known as Dean Phillips. He's the governor of North Dakota. Okay.
Trump. And I get it. It's fear of alienating a majority of where the party is. But it's sort of odd. Wouldn't somebody being charged with 91 criminal counts be somebody that you'd want to see drop out of the race? I mean, should they even be running for office?
Well, again, Chuck, this is the voters get to decide who runs for office in America, and whether it's a local election or whether it's a state or federal. The voters are the ones that ultimately get to decide. And again, if we're going to live in a democracy, at some point we've got to trust the voters.
I hear you on that, but it is interesting that you don't want to share your opinion on this. I think some voters will be frustrated by that.
Well, Chuck,
I'm not sure if anyone cares about what Doug, whatever his name is, thinks about Trump's case. I don't see much frustration emanating from the voting populace.
Right.
Who knows?
I mean, they'd have to first know who he is. That's the first hurdle. Yeah.
Yeah. I do get that Chuck is really excited about this.
He really wants that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, as Loogie says, Loose B, hit the like button, guys. Not for Doug, not for Chuck, but for us.
Yeah.
And for Cookie, the fat cat.
And Katie, since they're talking here about Trump's indictments, this is the issue that really has upended the useful aids community. There's been a huge split.
It's true.
You and I are on different sides of these indictments. You think the Georgia case is legit. I think it's dubious. I could go either way, but I think it's, from what I've seen so far, I think it's dubious. And the useful aids community.
You're more indictment curious. You're indictment curious. You're more indictment curious.
I'm indictment curious. Yeah. I'm unclear. I'm unclear as to what I think, but the useful aids community has been split in parts. It's been a huge division. And so every time we talk about this, who knows? Sparks could fly.
Yeah. But that's how committed we are to the truth.
And we did have that debate you can see recently at usefulaids.substack.com about this very issue.
Yeah.
Between four people who are not legal scholars. But,
maybe one day we'll have a lawyer weigh in on it.
Again, everybody's at a different place. If I had 100% national name recognition, if I'd run for president before, if I was living in a major media market and everybody in the country knew me, that'd be a different spot. But when you're...
I like that. That's like the most humble, self-owned kind of ever. He's like, guys, they barely know who I am. Why would I be commenting on Trump? I can't afford to alienate this guy. I mean, he's in a way, I don't know if he means to, but he's kind of digging at the famous people who aren't digging at Trump. Because what's their excuse?
If I remember, in fact, why are you even interviewing me in the first place?
Right. That's what he really is trying to ask.
I shouldn't even be here. Yeah.
Right.
In the private sector, when we were launching our little company that we then built over a period of time into a $1 billion company, you don't start out by attacking the market share leader. You start by telling people what you've got to offer. You don't have a basis to launch that. And like I said, there'll be segment after segment on every channel this morning, all the pundits lined up. And I'm not running for pundit, I'm running for president.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel as if...
That's a great line. Whoever came up with that.
Good. Yeah. I mean, he may just have gotten my vote. I may start volunteering for Doug Burgum, whatever his name is.
I'm not running for pundit. I'm running for president. By the way, I didn't know he was running for president. This is the first I've
right. Yeah. No, I think they had him on once, but it's understandable that you forgot because you know the show Arrested Development. Did you ever watch that show?
Of course. Yeah.
So remember Anne, who they always forget about existing.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of like that.
Her.
Yeah, her.
Her.
Yeah, exactly.
Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be adding your voice to defending citizens who essentially are part of the law enforcement community, whether it's a threat against a federal judge that we heard from a woman in Texas, or the doxing of members of the Georgia grand jury. I mean, this is stuff that is trying to essentially shake the foundations of our legal system. Do you think you should be adding your name to denouncing those efforts?
Okay. Oh, my
God,
Chuck.
Another way for Chuck to talk about Trump. By the way, the doxing of the members of the Georgia grand jury, yeah, that was messed up. But who did that? That was the Georgia prosecutors who released the indictment with the names public. I don't know why they didn't redact that. Maybe they can't, or I don't know. That was a mistake. But the doxing, that was the prosecutor's fault because they released that indictment with those grand jury names on it.
Yeah, I'm ready for Chuck to go after them.
Yeah, I mean, another question is who cares about all this stuff? But Chuck, of course.
No, he's giving him a menu, a very extensive menu of all the options that he has for going after Trump.
And if there's one group you should not criticize in the U.S., it's the law enforcement community. That's very, very important too. None of any criticism of law enforcement whatsoever.
Right. It's really insane. Like, I mean, this is just such.
Well, I think one thing we're adding.
Say it again.
It's just such badgering. It's like he's a witness and Chuck Todd is a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Our name to the list, a very small list of people in our giant country of people that are running for president. Because one thing I know is that if we're going to move back and move away from name calling and threats and all those things, that's not leadership. Leadership is about solving problems. Leadership is about character and integrity. Leadership is about bringing out the best of people, and it's about respect for others that have views different than you. That's why we're running. And absolutely, when I'm president, we're gonna lead with respecting everybody. We work for everybody. That's what we'll do. Again, right now, our job is to, not to be it's not the critic that counts. Theodore Roosevelt said it's the man in the arena. We're in the arena right now, and we're working hard to get to that spot.
Bam.
Bam. Well,
is
guys,
Chuck in the arena? Chuck thinks he's in the arena, but he just got kicked out.
He just got kicked out, yeah. What is Chuck? Chuck is like scalping tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got more. We're sorry to do this, but this is a very meta Doug Burgum show. So we're going to have someone talking about Doug Burgum now, and that's Democratic Governor Tim Walz. This is interesting. Minnesota governor.
At the Iowa State Fair last week from a Democrat. Governor Tim Walz of Burgum got an unusual endorsement at the Iowa State Fair last week from a Democrat. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Walz said, "I'm not a Republican," he told the New York Times, "and I'm not going to vote in the Republican primary. But if I did, I'd vote for him." Well, Walz was in Iowa as a surrogate for President Biden, and he joins us now representing the Biden campaign. Governor Walz, didn't mean to sandbag you there with your Doug Burgum.
Okay, so basically, what I'm getting from Chuck here is if you're somehow involved in the primary, if you're like talking about maybe running in the primary, as is the case with our friend who they can't stop talking about on the Democratic side, Dean Phillips, or if you're a Republican who's running, or if you're someone who's talked about a Republican running, you will get on Meet the Press.
Yes.
You have an interview.
Right.
If you are, though, challenging Biden, so RFK Jr., Cornel West, Marianne Williamson, no place for you.
No place for you, yeah.
But anybody else who is either talking about running or talking about someone else running, who's among the accepted Chuck Todd candidates, you will get on Meet the Press to talk about the other candidates.
Yeah.
So this Minnesota governor said, if I were Republican, I'd vote for the North Dakota governor who no one's heard of. Bam, you're on Meet the Press.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's hear what he has to say.
Endorsement. But you guys are neighboring governors. Quickly explain your working relationship with him.
Yeah, well, Doug is a friend, and it's kind of sad to me to hear that interview you did, which was a good one, asking all the hard questions. We've worked together on really important things that governors do, whether that's a flood diversion around Fargo to make sure that the seasonal floods of the Red River don't hit, and then agricultural issues. But look, Doug wouldn't answer the questions that need to be answered, and you were asking what's going to come out of this debate. The minute they all step on the stage, the American people have lost. Are they going to debate who can ban the most books? Who, Doug, he didn't tell you this, but he signed a 6-week abortion ban, which is hugely unpopular and simply wrong in America. So, yeah, we're friends.
Imagine if Chuck Todd had spent one question on that, on the 6-week abortion ban. Unfortunately, he couldn't because he had to stick to his obsessive quest to get him to say something negative about Donald Trump.
Yeah, and if Tim Walz doesn't like the North Dakota's governor's stance on abortion, why did he kind of endorse him and say, I would vote for him?
Yeah, because he's a friend.
Yeah. But basically, so I'm learning here now, not only do you get to come on Meet the Press to talk about the Republican who no one's heard of, but you also get to critique his appearance on Meet the Press right before you.
Yeah.
So it is definitely very meta.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Meet the Press. I mean, this is like the oldest continuously broadcast show in the country. It's really scraping the barrel here.
Yeah.
Bring on Cornel West. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. Don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to see it go down this road. Those are very simple questions you were asking about the president, about the indictments. And so I was a little bit tongue in cheek. And the sad part is I do believe that Doug is probably the most normal of these. There's a pretty weird group of folks going to be on the debate stage. Doug's a pretty good guy, but he's trapped in a Republican Party with no ideas.
So with a weird group of folks. Okay,
it is kind of a weird group of folks. He's not wrong there.
They could maybe use that as the tagline for the first debate.
You're right.
A gathering of a weird group of folks.
What is it? The next phase? The next phase? The unofficial launch of the next phase, a weird group of folks.
Weird group of folks.
Yeah.
Weird group of folks.
Well, guys, I'm sorry to do this, but we have one more clip related to Doug Burgum, but it does capture the Sunday morning news shows. So here is Jonathan Martin, New York Times reporter. Let's hear what he had to say about Doug Burgum.
Governor Burgum there. And Jonathan, I'm not surprised by the answers he gave me on this. This is what he's been sticking to his guns. Is that a viable path?
Well, speaking of an illustration about the larger theme, what a great example of a missed opportunity this morning. You're on national television and you don't take an opportunity.
Sorry, he's now at Politico. He used to be at the New York Times.
To say something about the biggest question, not only in this race, but in American politics, in global politics, okay, which is the possible return of the former president. And you don't say a word about it. And I think, Chuck, that really captures this, I think, very, very weak field. Where's the creativity? Where's the imagination? Where's the enterprise? Where's the
creativity? It would be so creative to talk about Donald Trump being disqualified.
Yeah. Give us something. Try something. Take a risk. These candidates out there wonder why their numbers aren't moving, why this race is static, basically. Well, you're not doing anything outside the box. The person with the biggest talent in the field is Chris Christie, and obviously he's frontally attacking Donald Trump, which, yes, hurts his numbers, but at least he's got something to say about the biggest question in the race. These other guys are basically walking on eggshells or saying nothing at all and just buying time, hoping against hope. Chuck, we've seen that movie. It's called The Last 7 Years in the Party.
Yeah.
Hey.
Sorry, what's the movie?
The Last 7 Years in the Party. You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it, no.
Starring Dean Phillips, Doug Burgum. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
He's saying that they're already, he's saying like they're not, he's saying they don't talk any smack about Trump.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, his critique could easily apply, as you indicated, easily apply to the media. Like, where's the creativity? Can you talk about something else? And you're wondering why your numbers are lagging, or if people don't trust you or don't take you seriously. Maybe it's because all you do is talk about Trump all the time, nonstop.
Right. And they want to be able to talk about they want, because they're so lazy, they want fights on the intra-Republican fights, because that would make their job easier. They could just cover that horse race.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, what an exciting, I wonder who we'll get next week is like the politician no one's heard of to be asked about Trump.
Right.
Basically. That's what these shows are becoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Another person asked about Trump is Republican Senator Bill Cassidy. He's of Louisiana, I think, and he also got asked about Trump on CNN.
Bill Barr says, former Attorney General Bill Barr says that the charges that have been brought against him are quote unquote responsible. Do you agree?
Well, I'm not an attorney. There's 91 charges, I think. I think the charge that seems most likely, seems almost a slam dunk, is the one related to mishandling of classified documents. So, I can't comment on the rest of them because apparently you have to prove state of mind. You'll have attorneys after me that can comment on that. But there's at least one, which is the mishandling of the federal documents, which is seems, again, a very strong case. They have a tape recording of him speaking of it. If that is proven, then we may have a candidate for president who has been convicted of a crime.
They have tape recordings of him, like calling the Secretary of State in Georgia. But I think one of the reasons that people like Cassidy is probably more comfortable with the document stuff is that's so easily to spin as national security.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Again, this risks
opening up the Pandora, the huge rift right. over Trump Georgia. But in the case of the documents, it's pretty clear because he says on the thing like I could have declassified this, right. But I didn't. And he's like waving it around. So right.
That seems pretty clear cut. In the case of Georgia, the question is,
did he think that they were there? The votes.
Well, also, does he have the right to say, I think the votes were. I think there's irregularities, and I think if you were to recount, you would find enough votes.
Sure.
It's
But my point still stands. I think that people can. It's a good thing for people to lean into because it's the national security thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like for Republicans, yeah.
I think Joe Biden needs to be replaced, but I don't think Americans will vote for someone who's been convicted. I'm just very sorry about how all this is playing out.
Do you think that Donald Trump should drop out of the race?
I think so, but obviously,
I'm sure that will happen. I'm sure we're
right.
It's definitely a prospect. It's definitely a prospect.
Yeah. It's kind of risky of Cassidy to say that, though.
Oh yes,
he's deviating. Yeah. Maybe it's that this woman Casey is a better interviewer because Chuck. Maybe if we Doug Burgum had just 1 minute with her instead of minute after minute after minute with Chuck Todd, she would have broken him too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's up to him. Just asking my opinion, but he will lose to Joe Biden if you look at the current polls. I'm a Republican. I think any Republican on that stage in Milwaukee will do a better job than Joe Biden, and so I want one of them to win. If former President Trump ends up getting the nomination but cannot win a general, that means we'll have 4 more years of policies which have led to very high inflation, to a loss of purchasing power for the average American equivalent to $10,000, and to many other things which I think have been deleterious to our country's future.
So if Donald Trump does ultimately win the Republican nomination, will you vote for Joe Biden or the Democrat over the Republican on the ticket?
I'm going to vote for a Republican, but my threshold issue for any person who wants to be the leader of our country is, will you take care of the issues before us? Both Biden and Trump both have the same policy on Social Security, for example, which is to do nothing. Unfortunately, Social Security is going insolvent in 8 to 9 years, which means that
8 to 9 years ago, people like Bill Cassidy were saying that Social Security is going insolvent in 8 to 9 years.
Right.
And 8 to 9 years before that, they were saying the same thing. We've been hearing this forever. Like George W. Bush, which is, elected 23 years ago, he was saying we have to do something with Social Security, and everybody was always saying this.
Yeah,
it's not true, and
it's a way because they want to privatize Social Security.
They want to privatize it. It's like one thing that hasn't been privatized yet, so they want to
better get on it.
They want people to toy with like the savings that will keep them alive when they get very elderly. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's enough of Senator Cassidy.
Yeah.
I do note that the anchor, Casey Hunt, is that her name?
Yeah.
She asked, would you support Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is? A nod to the fact that maybe Biden will not be running, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
Maybe she has the inside scoop there. I don't know.
Wow.
There is a lot of talk about Gavin Newsom.
the new guy in politics. I don't know. Just trying to come up with a good slogan for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. I'm sure we have more Trump talk next. Yes, we do. But actually, this one's fun. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh yeah, this is a great moment.
On Fox News has some thoughts about Trump's indictments.
Is not going to be. This election is not going to be swayed by indictments against President Trump that are really pure communism in America today.
Those indictments, I mean, she's not a legal scholar, but she might as well be a legal scholar and historian and political scientist, because she really has a grasp of the definition of communism. I mean, to be fair, the indictments, I was thinking, like, some of the indictments are against more than just Trump, right? There's some conspiracy indictments, which is kind of communist in that it's shared.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it's not just an individual. It's a redistribution of indictment. So maybe that's what she's referring to. I'm sure that's what she's referring to. Yeah.
There we go. Each according to his
crimes.
Crimes, yeah.
Alrighty. We can skip. Do you want to just skip to should we skip to, what do you think? Do we need the Asa? I mean, we could have we might as well give him his credit, because it's
I mean,
funny.
just to underscore how underwhelming these Sunday shows are, and how they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Here is what is considered some breaking news. Republican candidate, another one you haven't heard of, Asa Hutchinson, has some news for you.
Yeah.
Debate is this. The first Republican debate is this Wednesday. And joining me now is presidential candidate and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. Governor, thanks very much for being here. The first Republican presidential debate is now just about 72 hours away. Are you going to be on the stage?
The answer, Casey, is yes, I will be on the stage. I'm pleased to announce that we have met all the criteria that the RNC set to be on the debate stage. We've met the polling criteria, and now we have met the 40,000 individual donor criteria. We've submitted to.
Who says that journalism is dead, everybody? This is a huge scoop for CNN. I tip my hat. Congratulations.
Huge. Yeah.
They got the exclusive.
They got the exclusive. Yeah.
We tried. We really wanted this story.
We did. We reached out to Asa.
Yeah, we didn't get it, though. But we'll do our best to earn it. For the next Republican who no one's heard of, maybe we'll be able to announce that one day on Useful.
Yeah, maybe Doug Burgum reaches the threshold. But he has 2 days to do it. But we hope he'll come on our show.
Governor Doug, if you're out there,
Governor Doug,
we would be honored to announce. Yes, or even if you don't make the debate stage, we'd be honored to announce that too.
Yeah, we'd be honored to have you announce that. Maybe a little awkward and embarrassing for him to announce it, but he's leaning into not anyone to being an unknown, as he said. You know, maybe it would be one thing to criticize Trump if people knew who he was, but yeah.
All right, well, let's hear from a constituency that we don't hear from too often. That's called the voters. And Face the Nation did a little roundup of where voters are at, and guess what? They want to hear about something other than Donald Trump.
Spoiler alert. Who would have thunk? Yeah.
Show up at that debate stage. How do they differentiate themselves?
Well, I think there's one possible opening between the what people say they're hearing and what they want to hear. And it's this. Republican voters tell us they're hearing a lot about Donald Trump. Now, he's the front runner, but they don't all want to hear that in part because of all the indictment news. But what they want to hear about is the economy, specifically about plans to help lower inflation, to help the economy. And in that way, they're just like all American voters at this point, right? They care about how does the price of eggs come down? How do they get to buy a house if they're trying to?
Okay, well, breaking news. People
they don't want to just hear about, yeah.
Yeah, that's another big scoop from CBS. Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
A
little introspective. Yeah. They even, CBS News even talked about Hawaii, which was crazy.
Okay.
I didn't think there was any room to talk about Hawaii.
No.
Because of so much Trump, we got to get in that Trump coverage. Well, we have more people, in case you want more examples of how out of touch these people are by focusing constantly on Trump. Let's see the next clip, which is from this week.
Else who's not being a listless vessel. The governor of Georgia,
start at
Kemp,
1:15.
Who had,
I don't know, that didn't get taken out. Oh no, sorry, you were. No, yeah, 1:15. Yeah.
The problem for Republican candidates this whole summer has been about Donald Trump. It's been about the indictments. Maybe down the road it will have political ramifications or legal ramifications. But right now it has allowed Donald Trump to control the field. None of them have been able to break through the endless news cycle of indictments that Donald Trump has controlled. And that's why Republican primary voters haven't been willing to shop for another candidate. Maybe that'll end.
So basically, this is a good explanation of how the fact that the media is so obsessed with Trump and claims to be so fearful of Trump, what they're actually doing is empowering Trump, just like they did last time, right? There's that famous CBS Les Moonves quote about he's bad for the country, but great for ratings. So that woman just basically like broke down the function of the media in pumping up Trump.
Anyway, next week, more Trump.
Yeah,
all the
and
time.
yeah.
All the time.
Interesting reveal about how the sausage is made from a member of the media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Remember Alberto Gonzalez? He's the former attorney general. Served under George W. Bush. I believe, what's he most well known for? For like writing memos to justify torture and mass surveillance?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. Here are some of his greatest hits. So he was involved in a memo saying that laws prohibiting torture, quote, do not apply to the president's detention and interrogation of enemy combatants. It also said that pain caused by an interrogation must include injuries such as death, organ failure, or serious impairment of bodily functions in order to constitute torture. Then he wrote a memo in January of 2002 saying, quote, the war against terror is a new kind of war. This new paradigm renders obsolete Geneva's strict limitations on questioning of enemy prisoners and renders quaint some of its provisions. He also was involved in illegal wiretapping and even went to the hospital bedside of John Ashcroft to try to coerce him into reauthorizing this spying program, which he didn't. John Ashcroft.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that scene of like where he's like presenting like a pen and paper. Like,
he did that. Yeah.
Sign this. Just sign this. Just
sign this. Yeah.
Right there, John.
We really need some spying. Yeah. Just squeeze in the spying, please, please. Apparently, John Ashcroft's wife stuck her tongue out at the gentleman. He was there with Andy Card, another member of the Bush administration, when they left. It was a really big deal. James Comey almost resigned over it. Robert Mueller almost resigned over it. The spying program. And how bad are you? Sure. Yeah. So they say. Yeah. But how bad are you when John Ashcroft is like, no, this is too much?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, how much of a spy enthusiast are you when John Ashcroft has standards?
Well, because he's a Bush era neocon, he is now, of course, treated as a serious expert because Bush era neocons are now, we're told, represent the sensible middle. Bill Kristol is like a Democratic Party hero, and so. Alberto Gonzalez,
regular,
yeah. He was interviewed on Face the Nation.
No, Jen Psaki.
Oh, Jen Psaki. Sorry, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even better. This is a woman who worked for Joe Biden. She's part of the spokesman to media pipeline, and Gonzalez is part of the Bush administration to MSNBC pipeline. All right.
Questions out there, and you have. One of the big questions out there, and you have been a big defender of equal treatment, equal justice under law, everybody being treated the same, is...
Okay, first of all, I just want to say that, like, it is so disgusting to see her talking to this guy like he is a defender of rule of law. This is one of the big architects of torture. He also was involved in a firing scandal of all these prosecutors. He also did not do his job as counsel for Bush when he was governor. He was in charge of clemency memos where you review death penalty cases, and he would leave out all these mitigating evidence like incompetent, ineffective counsel, mitigating circumstances like being tortured. He just totally glossed over that stuff. So, and again, just to reiterate, Mr. Torture. So it's just disgusting to see him presented as a source on rule of law, on democracy. And I think Jen Psaki should be ashamed of herself, but that would require having a sense of shame. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But all right. Sorry, I don't mean to be angry and self-righteous about this, but it's just disgusting. Like, she doesn't care at all about all the people who were tortured because of this guy. People were tortured. They were, like pressed up against walls. They were waterboarded. Colin Powell was mad about this because he didn't want soldiers to be treated badly as a result of this. Colin Powell is not exactly a beacon of human rights and an opponent of torture. He covered up the My Lai massacre, but this is how awful this guy is. He also, thanks to him, they engaged in rectal force feeding, which is basically sexual assault. It was totally medically unnecessary. They pretended it was. They would put pine nuts and hummus in a blender and inject it up people's rectums. This is his legacy. So yeah, let's definitely hear from him and what he has to say about the rule of law.
If Donald Trump is convicted and sentenced to serve time, should he go to prison despite being a former president? I know we're getting ahead of where we are at this moment, but what is your view on that in general?
You're right. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. I haven't really thought about it. I think he should, if in fact he's convicted of the crimes charged by Jack Smith and the Department of Justice, yeah, I think he should serve time, quite frankly. Look, there are people that on January 6th went to the Capitol, maybe not at the clear direction of President Trump, but certainly he did nothing to stop what happened that day. They're serving time. And so if, in fact, the crimes, if, in fact, Jack Smith is successful in prosecuting Donald Trump for the crimes that he's charged, I think it would be fair that he go to prison. But we're a long way from there.
She had him on for other segments. We'll spare you the other ones. But again, it's just, I don't know. I think I'm pretty cynical, and it takes a lot for me to be at all surprised. And I don't even think I'm surprised. It's just galling to watch that.
We had a question from Super Chatter Mark Hill. Any coverage of the F-16 giveaway? The answer is no.
Of course not.
Yeah, because matters like that are secondary to talking about Donald Trump's legal cases. And so, yes, the Netherlands and is it Denmark are giving F-16s to Ukraine, and with the U.S. authorization. But there wasn't much Ukraine talk this week.
Well, because they had to fit in just a little bit of questions about Donald Trump, and they also had to book some torturers, so they didn't really have any time to focus on that stuff.
All righty. Are we doing a flashback clip, or do we not have that?
Yeah, Wilson, did that clip not work? Hold on, let's see. Oh, it was not available anymore. Yeah. Guys, I just want to say that was a clip. I should have screen grabbed it. It was a clip. I wonder if it got taken down because of people were upset about him and maybe even going to this clip. But it's a clip of him being asked by a CNN reporter about all the torture that happened under his watch. He denies it and then says that Obama not closing Gitmo is a sign that Obama came to see the light. It's actually a great bipartisan clip showing how, Obama refused to do the right thing and then was able to be co-opted kind of by Gonzalez. Gonzalez got to spin that as if Obama was endorsing torture, which in some ways he was definitely condoning it when he said we had to look forward, not backwards. But yeah, I want to know where that clip went. He also, by the way, Gonzalez argued, and this is why I'm so glad that Jen Psaki is turning to him as a legal expert. He also argued that habeas corpus was not constitutionally granted, that it was that the Constitution said you couldn't take away people's right to habeas corpus, but that didn't mean it was granted. And Orrin Hatch was like, no, Arlen Specter, had a fight with him and was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it is the dumbest thing you've ever heard.
Well, I do believe Obama said it best with that searing denouncement of the Bush administration when he said we tortured some folks.
Yeah, some folks. Yeah,
and that was just such a clear denunciation.
Yeah,
of torture.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone around the world who opposes torture can now say that we tortured some folks.
Yeah, exactly. Such a strong condemnation. The clip that we can no longer find, it's actually Eric Holder saying that he saw the files and all the evidence of the torture that happened.
And did nothing about it. Did
Right.
absolutely nothing about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the files. Just,
I saw the files. To be fair, he
it.
registered as torture, which Gonzalez wouldn't have said it was.
Right.
That's the difference.
I saw the files. I did nothing about it, but just so you know, the files were gruesome. The crimes were awful.
I can't sleep, and we will do nothing about it.
Yeah.
That's a good, that's like kind of the Democrats versus Republicans in a nutshell. One side tortures, says it's not. The other side says it's torture, and let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And we tortured some folks. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of neocons, Nikki Haley is running for president. She wants to talk about China because she's obsessed with having a war with China, I guess. And anyway, so she was on Fox News.
Policy, a big part of your resume. You've said China is beating us every single day. This weekend, over the last few days, the president has gathered leaders of Japan and South Korea to get together. Here's what he said about their discussions.
This summit was not about China. That was not the purpose of the meeting, but it did come. China obviously came up. Not to say we don't share concerns about the economic coercion or heightened tensions caused by China, but this summit was really about our relationship with each other.
So a lot of folks thought it was interesting that he started off by saying this wasn't about China, these meetings, but U.S. Ambassador Rahm Emanuel to Japan has said this meeting is sort of China's worst nightmare. Do you give the president some credit for bringing together Japan, South Korea to tighten those relationships as the threats from China increase?
The problem with what Biden says is
What threats from China are increasing?
Oh, Aaron, if you have to ask that question, you don't even know.
Like, what is China threatening? To defend itself if the
Balloons.
U.S. attacks it? Oh, the balloons, right. Yes. the
Mini balloons, yeah.
I forgot about the balloons. Yes. Yeah.
he takes the playbook from Obama. He starts apologizing before he tries to show strength. This absolutely is about China. The idea that we can get Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. together scares China. That's exactly what we want. The idea that we are going to work together more with them on tech, on military, on exercises, those are things that China doesn't want. The last thing China wants is a NATO in the Middle East. We want to make sure that we are focused on anything we need to do to get with our allies. It should not just be South Korea and Japan. It should be Australia. It should be India. It should be.
Well, she said the last thing China wants is a NATO in the Middle East.
I know.
I mean, maybe she forgets where China is, but I think she went to say Asia. But again, why
in
are
the
we?
East? Maybe for her, it's the East. The whole thing is the East.
I see. Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the Middle East technically is known as West Asia. So anyway, but why are we talking about bringing NATO into Asia now? Like, can we have some discussion about whether that's why? I mean, I thought it's supposed to be a defense treaty for the North Atlantic.
Right.
Now we're talking about expanding to Asia. We've already gone into Libya. There's a really funny tweet.
Yeah.
There's a really funny tweet from NATO a few days ago saying we're just a defensive alliance.
Right.
And then it got a correction, like a community note on Twitter saying actually NATO it has bombed Libya or whatever. It said something like to fact check NATO.
Right.
But Nikki Haley wants NATO to expand.
Or have a NATO equivalent.
Yeah.
Israel, and it should be the Arab countries. So, yes, I hope China is nervous, but I doubt that they are because he apologized before he ever got started with his speech.
We are deeply intertwined with China economically and in many ways on trade issues. We're dependent on them for key critical medications, critical minerals, all those kinds of things. You've talked about the fact that you want us to decouple from them as much as we can, but how in reality could we do that?
That's the same question the Europeans used to say about Russia before Russia invaded Ukraine. They thought they were too intertwined to separate. America needs to understand.
And just to make sure the Europeans really got it, we blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Just to make sure they realized the possibility of not being intertwined with Russia we destroyed the gas pipeline.
Show them what it would look like. Yeah. And it's fun.
China has been infiltrating America. They have started and been planning war with us for years. We have to be smart. They should not be.
Huh? So she says China's been infiltrating America and they've been planning war with us?
Yeah. You don't realize it, Aaron, because they've infiltrated even you.
Right. Right. But it's like China doesn't have nuclear armed naval vessels near the U.S., doesn't have military bases. The U.S. has that near China. So China's been planning to defend itself in case the U.S. attacks or starts a war over Taiwan. Don't think they've been planning to. China's certainly not been planning to invade the U.S.
Well, Aaron, once a headline did warn that China was hiding submarines in the South China Sea.
Oh, there we go. That's true. Yes. Yes, they are in the South China Sea.
That's where they hide their submarines.
Mm-hmm.
Buying U.S. soil near our military installations. They should not be killing 75,000 Americans a year by sending fentanyl.
That's a good line. Something about, let's hear that again, about near our military installations.
With us for years. We have to be smart. They should not be buying U.S. soil near our military installations. They should not be killing 75,000.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. She's referring to apparently Chinese nationals buying up property in the U.S. and they see that as a threat. I haven't looked into that one, but yeah, I'm sure it's overblown.
Of course you haven't, because you're infiltrated.
Uh-huh.
Americans a year by sending fentanyl over. They should not be stealing our intellectual property. They should not be building up all of their military because they're getting ready for war. America needs to be smart. No more talking about how economically dependent we are. Let's talk about the fact that we shouldn't be dependent on our medicines from China. We should not be selling them land, and we should be taking back the land they've already purchased. We should make sure we get that infiltration out of our universities.
Sounds like communism right there.
Mm-hmm.
Expropriating, nationalizing land. That sounds like some communism.
You're right. Sounds like sounds like she's turning to Mao, ironically, because they've infiltrated her.
And when she says like we should not be depending on China for our pharmaceuticals, well, that was a choice of pharmaceutical companies to get material from China, and like all this interdependence. That's a choice of U.S. corporations seeking cheaper labor. And cheaper production costs going to China. So it's not like China's fault that U.S. corporations decided to pack up and go there. That's a domestic choice on their part because they want to make money. And the thing about the fentanyl, China's not responsible for fentanyl in the U.S. Isn't that the cartels? Isn't it drug cartels?
Yeah, right. You're right. They lean into both of them. They like to blame both of them. But what's interesting is that Nikki Haley was very critical of the House Democrats who skipped a Modi speech. But you know where else fentanyl's coming in from? She left this out.
It's coming from India, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's growing. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. Let's see how much more of this we can stomach.
Universities. We should make sure that we stop selling them technology that's actually building up their military that they're using to threaten America. And we should create a strong military, not one that focuses on gender pronoun classes, but a strong military doesn't start wars. A strong military prevents wars. This is not the time for the U.S. to be scared of China. This is the time for the U.S. to be strategically smart and say we are not going to let them intimidate us. We are going to become strong and independent on our own and do whatever it takes to keep Americans safe.
Okay, you can skip to 505.
But those thousands of products
Although she does, this woman Shannon does challenge her on how you're going to decouple from the economics, and she has no answer. So we might as well just not play that, and because we don't have all the time in the world. But let's hear what she has to say about Russia.
And obviously a concern with China is their friendship without limits, as they call it, with Russia, and that brings.
I like that term. It's like it's better than friends with benefits. It's friends without limits. That's even more. Okay.
Access to Ukraine. You've said we need to keep continuing. You've had questions about sending cash, but you said when it comes to military equipment, ammo, that kind of thing, aid, that we should be willing to do that in this fight so that Putin can decisively be thrown back from where he's gone with taking territory and all of the other horrific things that have happened there. But there are, by estimates that we've either spent or appropriated 75 to maybe in some estimates $100 billion to Ukraine. So what do you say to American taxpayers who say, how are we tracking this stuff? Our polling all shows they're exceptionally worried about our economy here and their ability to buy groceries, to put gas in their car, to put food on the table. They're much more worried about the domestic financial situation, and they see this money going over and have a lot of questions.
I, too, am worried about the domestic situation and inflation. I mean, Republicans and Democrats have spent like drunken sailors, and the Americans are paying the price for it at the grocery store and at the gas station. But keep in mind, less than 5% of our defense budget has gone to Ukraine. And remember that a win for Russia is a win for China.
Less than 5% of our massive Pentagon budget has gone to Ukraine. We're supposed to feel good about that. When it's tens of billions of dollars. And it just came out recently that homelessness, like the number of unhoused, at a record level. Suicides in the U.S. are at a record level. You can go on and on and on. And yet there's just endless money for the Ukraine proxy war because, again, China, for some reason. It's not just about Russia. It's also about China.
It's a proxy war squared. I mean, some people like Chris Christie has talked about this. So, Aaron, you constantly point out that this is the war in Ukraine is a proxy war between the United States and Russia. You're not the only person to point that out. People like Adam Schiff point that out, right? Where he says we have to fight them over there so we don't fight them here. Mm-hmm. Lindsey Graham points that out when he says that they have to fight to the last Ukrainian. Lloyd Austin points that out where he talks about the real goal here being weakening Russia. But that's only one level. You're missing the next level, which is the proxy war is a proxy for China and the U.S.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
That's trippy. By the way, just a quick window into how the proxy war is going. This is from the New York Times. Let me show this. This is from the New York Times just the other day. They say this. American officials say they fear that Ukraine has become casualty averse. So that's how much we care about Ukraine. That we fear, that they fear death. That's where the proxy war is at right now.
Right.
So now our concern is that the Ukrainians are becoming casualty averse. So Ukrainians don't want to die, and we're scared about that. That's where we're at in the proxy war right now.
I don't even. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like if Ukrainians actually cared about democracy, they'd be. Just throwing themselves in front of bombs and guns. That's the way that they could show us that they care, instead of trying to avoid being dead. That's just so. They're letting Putin win with that. That's what Putin wants them to do: fear death.
Well, one of the domestic calamities that are being neglected because of the war in Ukraine is the horrible fires in Hawaii. And so let's close the show with that.
Which somehow they managed to have some time.
Well, I know you will be traveling with President Biden to Hawaii. What is it that you think he needs to see firsthand?
I think the biggest thing that the president needs to see is just the actual impact, right? It really feels different when you're on the ground and can see the total devastation of Lahaina town. And then,
as opposed to vacationing in Delaware, which is where Biden was when the fires first erupted. And that's when he said no comment when asked about, Mr. President, do you have any reaction to all these people dying in Hawaii? He said no comment. Sorry to laugh, but that really is that's a peak Biden moment right there. No comment on Americans dying in horrible fires.
He'll talk to some of the families that have been impacted by this and hear their stories. And what he's going to be able to do is he's really going to be able to, one, bring hope to this community, but also reassure them that the federal government is there, that he has directed them to bring the resources they need to help them as they begin to start their recovery and their rebuilding process, and do it in a way that they want us to help them with, right? This is their town, and we want to be able to support their vision for what Lahaina town rebuilds to look like.
Hope is on the way, everybody. Biden's coming.
Yeah, Biden's coming. Actually, it's interesting. Wilson, do we have that tweet? If not, I can try to show it in another document. It's in the doc, but sometimes an image, what did they say? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Hold on. Don't worry, guys. Hope is on the way, as Aaron just said. Hold on.
It's up on screen, Katie.
Oh, great. Okay. So this is the kind of seriousness that Biden is bringing. As residents of Hawaii mourn the loss of life and devastation taking place across their beautiful home, we mourn with them. Like I've said, not only our prayers are with those impacted, but every asset we have will be available to them. Okay, here's the latest. Now, scroll down all the way to number 2. We're laser focused on getting aid to survivors, including critical needs assistance, a one-time $700 payment per household, offering relief during an unimaginably difficult time. It's so unimaginably difficult that we are going to give you $700. It's so shameful. And we're also not going to declare a climate emergency. But don't worry, guys, because as Biden said, he practically declared a climate emergency.
Practically, yes.
And you're right. Soul Life points out it's per household, not even per person. You're right. It's very important to point out. So if you're a family of 5, good luck with $700, one-time payment.
Well, we're going to wrap the show.
We're going to wrap the show up. One really quick plug for last week's Katie Halper show, because I had on 2 people from Maui, Kaniela Ng and Kahala Johnson, and they, as Kaniela Ng actually described Biden's response as climate change denial. So,
all right, we'll check that out at the Katie Halper show. And thanks everyone for tuning in. usefulidiots.substack.com or usefulidiots.locals.com, and we'll see you next time.
And also Tuesdays, Wilson and I do a Substack only chat that you can join Tuesdays at noon EST, Eastern Standard Time. And again, we may be doing something on Wednesday. Check it out for the Republican convention. We'll put out a Substack post if we do that. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.